Good morning. Pleasure to be here. I'm Gary Baker, Creative Director, Unite Hair. And this is my first class for Salon Republic. I've never had the pleasure of working in front of you guys. So bizarrely, I'm working in front of you, but I can't see you. So I'd like to welcome you this morning to this razor cutting class that we've been specifically asked to do. And we're going to go over the mechanics of graduation, especially, and also showing how to blend short layers into long on a haircut. So I've got two amazing models, one here and one with longer hair, called mannequins, which I'm going to be using today because they're very easy. They don't cry. They always turn up and they always love what you do. So they're always a great model. So I'm going to start off working on a one-length bob, showing you how to put graduation into that. And before I do that, I want to just go into the mechanics of using a razor. For ease of purposes today, I've got two types with me. I've got one that I'm going to use with no guard on there at all, just a straight neat blade, and one with a guard. So anyone who has questions about those preferences, etc., can see me using both. And also I want to talk about the actual motion you will see when I'm cutting the hair as well. And I'm going to just bring in a whiteboard just to illustrate that very quickly. Difference I can want to lead. Determine that's on camera. That's good. Okay, so we've got three motions, three cutting techniques we normally use when using a razor. They would be all dependent on your wrist action, of how you're holding the razor, etc. I like to generally put my thumb on the top of the razor itself for control, depending on what type of razor I'm using. For this one, so my hand position is going to be, it's coming in between the little finger and the three fingers, and that is going to be my hand position. So the little pinky stands up, and that just gives me greater control. I can then change the actual handle, etc., the angle I want on that from that position, be it open or closed, and then I'm going to be able to see, or you're going to be able to see the actual motion I'm using. So depending on your wrist action, I'm going to use a carving motion. Okay, we're going to actually carve through the hair. So you're not going to see me actually start moving the wrist too much. And then we're going to show you two different types of wrist action. So what does that do to the hair? So to illustrate that quickly, carving, I'll write that one down there. Excuse the handwriting this time of the day. Generally gives me a shape like that, but it's much more. Can you see that, Mike? Can you zoom in on that? You make it a bit stronger. There we go. A reflection of light on it. There's carving. I won't bother with the writing. Then your two types of wrist action. One that is very soft is going to give you an edge on the hair like that. Then obviously when we use much more of an aggressive motion with the wrist, it's going to give you an edge on the hair like that. Okay, so that's where you start working into actual texture. But this is all the perimeter lines of the haircut. We're not going to go into the hair shaft and detail that until later on. So the benefits of using a razor over scissors. I love this. I've been using a razor ever since I started hair, which is a long, long time ago, people, let me tell you. Nearly 40 years ago. So the techniques haven't changed too much, but what they've done, they've become much more of a modern method. So let's talk about graduation first. Let's delve into this. Just going to damp the hair initially to get started on this. So I like to work on the hair that is pretty wet and full of moisture when we're using a razor, especially when we're doing precision work. So argument's sake, you've done your baseline and you found that the hair looks just too bulky, etc. Or another reason is it's quite fine, you want to add some weight in there, because we know graduation is the build-up of weight. How do we apply that with a razor? It's bad enough when we're using scissors, isn't it? So let's delve into this to see how we attack it. The section and pattern is going to be extremely similar to scissors, and the technique similar, but the action of cutting it slightly different. I do have a slightly different way of instigating graduation. I'm going to make sure Put the head really nice in the camera position. So we take a profile section first, right the way down the center of the head. Make sure it's nice and clean. It really does help, you know, just when you're starting to work on your haircut, the cleaner sections you can see, the much easier it is for you to work on. Your brain doesn't get what I call in a fuddle or in a fog of misinformation to yourself or when you're trying to cut it. Just make sure that it's nicely out of the way. If so, if you need it, just clip it. Now my go-to, especially when I'm working on a mannequin for when I'm doing razor cutting, I'm going to be using the boing leave-in conditioner. I recommend 7 seconds for generally every head of hair, but because the nature of mannequin heads are quite coarse, so in the real world, if I'm actually using this on a real person who's got coarse hair, I'm going to be using boing leave-in as well. So quite a nice amount of product put into the hair because it will blow dry off anyway. But you want to create a nice amount of slip for that razor, for the precision work. And we want to instigate putting some moisture into the hair before we work on it as well. So my first section, I palm the razor straight away initially. Make sure that it's pointing out of the way of my hand so it's not closed. Don't want any cuts. I'll open it right up so it's pointing away from you, as you can see through here. So my first section, the bottom of the hair, does have a slight angle pointing towards the shoulder. Just going to make sure, I'm just going to check the camera angle when I pull this out. You can see that correctly. I might take it to the side, Mike. Yeah. There we go. So we talk about graduation, build up of weight, 45 degrees to the head shape. Always think to yourself, where is 45 degrees to that head shape when we're doing this? So bearing that in mind, because there is a curvature to the head through here below the occipital bone, it's going to be a slightly different angle than what you think. It's not going to be pulling up. That will be a square layer if I'm putting up to there. So we need to actually make sure it's that angle in the bottom of the nape of the neck. So instead of doing that motion, which you normally associate with a razor, I'm just literally going to slide it, okay? Super quick. Now, that frightens people sometimes when you do that because it comes off so quick, you are committed. Once that blade hits the hair, you are in. I'm going to move the mannequin again so you get a better angle. Just want you to show my section pattern. So you can see through here. My next section is above the previous. And I'm working in what I call like a clock motion from here. Can you imagine that the first section is just below the 6 o'clock side, and I'm going to work through pivoting all my sections until they come up level with the ear, roughly just below the 9 o'clock. That makes sense, okay? So each section will do, and we'll start pivoting them up. I can't take the whole of the section in my hand in one go. So my tension is only going to be between the tip of my finger and really just past the first junction in my fingers through here. There's no tension down here. Your fingers just don't grab that. So to create even tension, that is the only part of the section I'm going to be working on. So once again, the razor is introduced and it's just a sliding motion. So I come down the head all in one sweeping motion. And as you can see through here, I might zoom in on that quickly. Just get my hand position. There you go. I want you to zoom in on the hair. Just get it against the white screen. You can see how clean that cut is. It's as good as a scissor. Okay, so we're doing precision work at this moment in time. Maintain the angle, tension position. We come over the top to make sure our guide's through here, and we just slide that hand down, making sure that it's all one continual movement. It almost feels like your hands are dropping as you go through.
Can we try the next section with you on the right side? And we'll go profile. Because your hand's kind of screwing it.
Let me go. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that might be better.
Yep. Everything we do on the camera is back to front, so your right is my left, etc.
Yeah.
There we go. So pivoting once again, you should be able to see the guide behind the hair. You just see the weight change just through here. You can just see it as I pull it into the light, just there. So there's my guide, making sure I'm not going above the occipital bone. I instigate the razor in and it just drops straight through. There we go. Once again, once I'm getting up to the occipital bone, you can see then the angle I'm taking this graduation here. The section starts to change. It's starting to pivot out more towards what I call like a horizontal section. So that carving motion, or the sweep as I call it, creates a very, very precise line. This is generally what freaks people out when they first start using a razor, is that you're committed as soon as it goes in. So once again through here, you can just see, let me just move into the weight, you can just see that guideline just sitting behind my fingers. Because unlike scissors, we take the fingers beyond the guideline, but my tension, that's the real key to here, is my tension is really quite constant, and as you can see, my fingers mirror the angle, the section I've taken. Okay, makes it a lot easier. Just that sweeping motion down to what I call infinity out here. And you start to see the build-up of weight. Nice and clean. We've just now got up to the top of the ear. And as you can see, I've pivoted. So I've come from this end, my fingers have worked continually, pivoting from that central point just below the occipital bone. You see my hand change this way, coming into what I call, let's say, more of the horizontal section. And what I'm trying to think of, if this was a real person, their shoulder line would be here. So a great point in reference is that you're always going to be cutting out to that shoulder line. I'm not going to go beyond it. As soon as I go beyond it, I'm then influencing the hair that is in front of the ear. My graduation is going to run too far in the front. Got any questions so far, Mike?
Nothing yet. Anybody listening that wants to type in some questions onto the chat, we'll relay it to Gary and get some answers for you if Stacy can't already get to it for you.
A little bit more boiling. Just mix it in with some water. You can ask me about anything. It doesn't always have to be about razor cutting, anything hair-wise, product-wise. Throw your questions in. So it's quite a nice, relaxed class. If I was doing this in the salon, I'd be wanting to do exactly the same. Ask anything you like. As you can see, nice and clean and methodical. It's not hard. Now I'm going to run that next section runs all the way into the front of the hair. So as you see, it's very, very quick way of graduating the hair. And now at this point, I'm virtually completely on the horizontal. Sweeping motion continues. Working out to that shoulder line. I'm going to drop in the rest of the hair, making sure we're always conscious of where natural fall is as well. We talk about natural fall, has become very important. Overextending that guideline back changes the influence of your haircut. Natural fall is where that hair will fall naturally with gravity, no blow drying added. So that's what I'm doing here, is what I'm palming the hair in this shape. So what it does, it kicks the hair down and sits into the haircut that I'm giving it. Working up to that imaginary shoulder line once again. So to cross-check what I'm doing, because I've been working more on the horizontal there, I will come down now and just work on much more vertical sections, just to make sure we haven't left any stray hairs out. Overextending that hair back, that'll be following my guide that I put in previously, so the position changes. If I came out 90 degrees to the head, I'm working too far round, because remember when we was on the horizontal, we're overextending that hair back to drop on the shoulder line. So same principle. So doing this first, putting all my graduation in, it naturally gives me where this haircut would finish on the baseline from here. So I'm going to blow dry this off very, very quickly, just so you can see. I'll put on that graduation, it's just so much faster, then it gives me a natural finish position of where that baseline would finish up. So it sits in really nicely to the bottom of the hair. Obviously the mannequins, the bottom of the hairlines actually want to kick out viciously, so I could refine that with some scissors. But there we have, you like that really well. You can just see through here, there's our graduation, seamless. Very, very quickly, done with carving motion. So we're going to change it up on the other side. So I obviously want to give you the option of seeing what it can look like on the other side, using much more of what people feel comfortable with, of that sweeping motion with your wrist. And a slightly different take on the angle that we're doing. So I'm going to take a section above the ear and take all of that hair out of the way, because that is going to be that finish point of where our graduation finishes. That's going to be the maximum area of our weight line, because it's going to finish just below the occipital bone through here. So it still blends, it still matches what that side is. That's always very conscious of when we see through here, elevate that up, let it drop just below the occipital bone. I'm going to switch the mannequin around, pop this side. There we go. I'm going to switch over to a razor that has a guard on it. No, there's no preference. I actually use one that's very, very different to the pair of these, but it's not widely available here in the US, so I chose not to use that today. So I'm working now on a completely vertical section. Okay, I'm not doing a traditional pivoting out through my graduation through here. It's going to be straight vertical section. I'm pulling the hair out. Forcing the hair through the angle with my fingers. Checking my angle is correct. Through here. And then I'm going to use that sort of back and forth motion with my hand to instigate first piece of graduation. From here, another vertical section. Now we know there's sort of like two bones run up the back of the neck through here, muscle, tendons, etc. I always use those as a guide. I run my graduation to those points. You can find them because that's the finish point of when the head starts curving away to the front. So my sections stay constant, 90 degrees out from the head for that. Having a fresh blade in your razor when you're doing haircuts. People always ask me, how long does the actual haircut last? I always say I normally use a double-sided razor, and I can get 3 to 4 haircuts out of a maximum and switch it over. So now I've got to level with whatever that tendon would be in the real world. I'm then going to start over extending that section back to the previous. So you can see through here, I'm overextending, the hair is traveling over to that previous section. And we're still working 90 degrees from the head, working straight down. Once again, on the vertical, overextended over. Now, reiterate, I can't take all of that section in my hand, so I come to the top of that section, keep my tension constant. So once again, fingertip and the first knuckle is all I'm working to. And you'll see through here, you're starting to see that graduation build up already, just like we did on the other side. Vertical section again. Overextend back. And check your elevation. My elevation is what is running vertically up and down the head. So there's my elevation. So just be constant with that as well. Very important when you're doing your graduation. Your elevation stays constant. So the slight difference what I'm doing through here is that I'm not necessarily focusing on that shoulder line, my graduation, because I know if I pull everything back to here, eventually by the time I get round to the front, that front is going to drop away. If it doesn't, it's absolutely fine. Your hair's that long and you're pulling it all the way back to here, well, you can imagine hair that is now that long being pulled back to that center point. So look, you see through here. That's the length of the comb. How long is that in the front? It could be way too long for a bob anyway. It could have a huge amount of drop on it. So if you are dragging everything back to that point, you've still got lots of hair then to cut a baseline quite safely that will swing free of the shoulder. A true bob is one that is clear of the shoulder, doesn't really sit on the shoulders. We're talking about one length hair then, once it starts sitting on the shoulder. So you can see through here my hand position. I'll drag it back. I'm going to cut on the other side of my hand now, because being right-handed, although you'll see it differently in the mirror, this is always going to be your weaker side, depending on where you stand. I find it much easier doing the graduation like this on here because it's in front of me and I'm working down. And what I mean by that is when it's in front of me, I'll show on camera, is that my elbow is locked into my side. And there's my hand position. Okay, so it doesn't move. And my elevation stays constant. I can feel then if my hand drops up and down. There's my little tip of the day for you. Overextending that back. You can see through here, you can see the graduation drop very, very cleanly. And then from there, I'll repeat what I did on the other side, and then we'll work horizontally So it's a forward diagonal section. So we're now taking hair from the front. Why have I switched to a horizontal? Purely because it's much easier then for me to follow that baseline underneath. So we elevate the hair up, making sure that is constant as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do through here, I'm going to just do like a slightly more pronounced motion with my wrist. Okay, once again, locking that arm. My arm is this arm through here is locked into my side, so it gives me the freedom to be here through here. So what I've got is a slight bit of disconnection at this point. It's now sitting over the top of all that graduation from behind, which I think is beautiful for when you've got hair that is really fine. You do your graduation technically up to the occipital bone and then drop the hair over the top. You're then going to create even more volume on the hair. Any questions in there, Mike?
Nothing yet.
Nothing. No one's talkative this morning. Anything doesn't make sense, you want me to go over it again, please feel free. Once again, forward diagonal, paying attention to the natural fall line of the hair. And I like to cut this, what I call it's almost like cutting inside out. Do my graduation first before I put any baselines in, because I'm eradicating so much of that hair. If I spent ages cutting a baseline, then going in doing my graduation, it takes a huge amount of time. It's just having the confidence, knowing that as I'm not going to be going above that occipital bone, is that it's going to be absolutely fine. So you see through here, even though I'm elevating the hair out, I know when it drops, it sits down there below the occipital. So we're doing some slight disconnection through here. So now on the next sections, I'm going more into the hair shaft, that mid hair shaft through here. So not only am I cutting the actual weight line, but I'm actually starting to eradicate a little bit of weight and add texture to the hair as well. So my positioning is changed as I'm doing the actual haircut. Let me go over that again. We're elevating it up as much as I can at this point. So it's almost like 90 from the top of the head. So I'm coming now more directly into the hair shaft, eradicating weight. And you can do this on numerous different ways. You can put the actual come in with the razor and use it if you so wish, more like the tip of the razor. I'm using it more like mid point. I'm not putting the razor flat. I'm not using it to its maximum here. I'm trying to eradicate weight. I want to still make sure I've still got that weight line. So I'm only using a small part of it. Final section through here. So to soften the weight line underneath, it's what I call going up the wall. You could, if you've got working with a lot of hair, all you've got to do is elevate as much as you want. The more you elevate, the more you are going to soften that weight line below it from the previous section you've cut. And what you're going to find is the hair that I'm not only cutting now, but some of the hair that I've cut before is just going to start falling away underneath. So you're not impacting what you've already cut. Okay, it's as simple as that. Let's dry this piece off quickly, see what we've been left with. Okay, I'm just going to raise her up. Just so you can see that graduation through here. And all I would have to do then is just sharpen up that baseline. And I'm just going to show you the difference it makes. I'm going to use scissors just so I can be quicker here. So you've got a slightly concave shape working through into the front of the head. See, this is the problem area when I find you do graduation, is that people get a bit scared about working around the ear. They don't know where to fall on. So, as I said before, when you're working to those shoulder lines, etc., it becomes fail-safe. So I'm not going to bother doing the front. I wanted just to show you the back through here. So we've clearly got seamless graduation. So I've got a slight disconnection this side, and it's seamless on the other, but perfectly balanced both ways. And I would hopefully you would agree that it was extremely quick in using the razor, and the effect is just as effective as I would do using scissors. And I want to draw that up very, very quickly on the whiteboard, so you've got a reference on that as well. So a little bit more you can understand it, because people learn differently. Some people, like to watch, some people like to do it themselves, and some people need a visual reference. So I'll just clean that up. Anyone got any questions about what we've just done? If you want me to go over about it, please ask. Hopefully you agree it was extremely quick, not frightening at all. Mike, anyone on there?
No questions.
No questions. Everyone's waking up, still drinking coffee.
Thank you for sharing is what we've got so far.
Hey. All right, I'm just going to make sure you can see this. I'm going to do the backs of the heads, the light bulbs. Here we go. Right. Our first section, which is going to be, if I'm working here, that's going to be going that way. So I want to do this side. So I'll do a line. There was our profile parting right down the middle. Our first guide, 45 degrees in the middle. Temperamental whiteboard, wet. No, it's not having it.
Marker.
There we go. 45, and then we started to take them up, and then we pivoted out. So each one would come to the previous. Working, remember, we always make sure that shoulder line of the person, you could see that was our guide, our reference point. And on the other side, we did vertical sections from below the occipital bone, a little bit higher up, working to what I call that area of the tendons in the back of the neck is really as a useful guide before the neck starts curving through to the front. So everyone's neck is going to be slightly different. So your graduation is going to change as well, because if I had that as a universal fixing, everyone's haircut would look differently. So I use that as my guide, because I've always found visually that is where I get the haircut then most impactful as it curves around to the front, because you are cutting on a curved surface. So you need a curved line for it to sit into the neck adequately. Once I got to there, subsequent sections were then taken back to previous guide. And I said before, you could work all the way to the front if you so wish. And then we went horizontal, forward diagonals, just like we did on the other side. Drop those down, elevating as well at the same time. So there would be our elevation. And as we got to the top, we elevated even more. So you can see through here, that's my guideline. Look through there, and that would be my graduation from here, okay? I wanted to put it out that way, graduated bob. At this point, we use much more of a sweeping motion with the wrist. There's less through here and less through in the bottom. So consequently, what are we going to get? We're going to get more texture on the top, slight disconnection, overhang, etc. So there's your visual guide for both sides of the haircut, a bit of graduation. Hope you enjoyed that one. I always do. I love doing a little graduated bobs with a razor because I just think it takes a lot of fear out, a lot of hard work with scissors. It's effective, it's user-friendly in a salon because it's so quick. We've all had those clients in there when you've done graduation and she turned around and said, oh, I'd like it a bit shorter, please. Understanding where your weight line is and where it should go into on the haircut, that gives you your graduation in the haircut anyway. And that way you can clear that up in your consultation. Someone came in and said, oh, you know, I've heard people say, oh, well, stacked haircuts, etc. But, you know, the graduation is the key of where your weight line is going to sit. You never want to go above your occipital bone. If you're going above that, you're going to be in trouble. Because if someone's got a pronounced occipital bone, you're doing graduation, it's going to make it pop out even more. So the second haircut we were asked to be showing was how do we blend in short layers into long using a razor. So I want to give you what I would call like a disconnected shag haircut for this because it's current. It's what so many people are doing at the moment. The last couple of years, we've seen so many variations on it. So nice little damping down. Got any questions in there, Mike? Have a little check for me.
Still no questions.
Well. So your hand position is going to change dramatically when you work on the top of the head, obviously. So once again, I'm always going to be generous with our leave-in conditioner. I think it's a great cutting fluid, either one. Reiterate, cool stick hair, boing leave-in, fantastic for that. Every other head type, 7 seconds. Vital when I'm using a razor, it gives me great tension and controllability as well. And I think that's one of the things you want to consider. You know, clients have never had razor cuts before. They don't particularly like the noise. So this cuts down the noise anyway when you're using it. So let's put in our guide. Working on a halo section around the top of the head. Very easy to find. If I put the comb in vertically on the head and just run it through, I instantly find parietal ridge. Okay, that weight area where the curvature of the skull is. Work it through here. Do exactly the same on the other side. Flat, run it through, all the way into the back. And then we check for balance. Make sure we've got it pretty much lined up both sides. It's just a slight fraction lower this side. Okay, now for speed, because we haven't got a huge amount of time today, I'm going to take this all off in one go. Now, it's quite easy to do that in a salon as well. Just going to use my scissors for you. So, quite a short layer in the front. Breaking all the rules, but what the hell. So, I'm doing this, I'm making sure I pull all that hair into the middle of the head. Why? Because then we have a slight concave section on the top. Oh, make sure she's down. If I was doing this more traditional way, all I would do, straight profile parting, take up my first section, make sure the angle is where I want, and just work that down. So I've got, as you can see through here, pretty clean. There you go. There's my elevation, 90 to the head, over direction. nice and short. By pulling all of that into the hair, into the center, what you are going to find, we're going to have just a slight angle running that way out to the head. So there's my layering for the top. Frightening, but let's have a look. I'm going to run it off a parting. So how do we blend that into the rest of it? Very, very simple. Now at the moment, she's going to be looking like she's got a mullet. But we want to turn this into, you know, a modern shag. Very, very simple. So I'm going to work first off in the back. Bearing in mind we still want to be conscious of that occipital bone. First off, I'm just going to separate the back of the head. So just sections, radial, front of the ear, back of the ear, where our sections are going to be. Just clip all of that out of the way. Right, let's move around. Let's see what I'm doing. Here we go. Profile parting straight down the middle. Elevate your hair up till you find your guide, okay, where we've cut it already. I'm not trying to take all of that section. If some of it falls away at the bottom, absolutely fine. Here we go. There's my guide right there. There's the piece through here. You can just see it. Okay, all I've got to do, I'm going to drop my mannequin a little bit just so I'm comfortable. Now, if obviously you're using scissors, you're going to pull the hair right the way up as much as you can, and you're going to point cut. You haven't got that luxury with using a razor or hand position. So all I do is just change my palm position through here. You can see this is going to change my fingers position on the haircut. And what I do from that guide, I will then take out the remaining of that hair that I need to. Disconnection's happening. Okay, elevate. Your bottom's falling away. You've then got seamless layers blending in. Pivot around. Now, where I'm standing in relation to this, I have this, Mike can zoom out a little bit. Right, there we go. Where am I in relation to that section? It's right in front of me, okay? I'm almost like 90 degrees looking directly into the head. So if I had a camera over my shoulder, which I might be able to do this actually, let's have a look. There we go. Right, there you go. So my hand position is not overextending the hair left and right. It's not drifting. It stays centered right through here. Okay. This arm is locked yet again. And what that gives me when you're going to pan out, I can see nice and methodically that section through here. And you can see my tension, really good top of the fingers through here. No, it's not, it's loose. So I'm not even worried about cutting that. It's that top section I need to hold on to. Once again, reintroduce the razor, I'm coming through, and I'm using much more of a vigorous motion with the hand, just like we did on the final part of that bob. And once again, we make sure elevate, let the hair at the bottom fall away, then got seamless layering into the bottom of the hair. So working short into long. Okay, we should repeat that on the other side. I'll spin her around. That's good.
Yeah.
Michael should tell me if not.
Yeah, this side's good because I can see the inside of your hand on the razor side.
Yeah. Okay, vertical section. Stand through here. You see my arm is now locked in through here, and all I do to blend that in is I elevate that section up. And I can carry on working down into the hair if I so wish. And of course, what am I doing as I'm elevating is that I'm not affecting the baseline whatsoever. You're just pivoting off the top, working my way around. I'm not overextending that section because I've got even thickness on this hair. So I'm making sure I'm traveling all the way around. When I get to the in front of the ears, it's going to change slightly. So you're always assessing what the hair type is like on the head. The main bulk of the hair on this model is obviously in the back of the head. So I don't want to be a lazy hairdresser and just stand behind my client, sit there chatting all day long, pulling everything back to me, because this is going to be the shortest part of the head is going to be in the back and everything is going to fall forward. Okay, it's maybe great for your bobs, but you always want to make sure you move around in increments as you travel around the head. Try and give up that urge to want to be looking in the mirror while you're talking to them. Even when you pick the section up, sometimes you just subconsciously just travel back a bit and do it. And all you're doing then, your hand position changes and you're overextending your hair back. And before you know it, you've probably got shorter hair one side than what you do the other. So it's just something we do subconsciously, that we pick up on people when we're teaching them, is to make sure, that's why I always say that section is in front of me through here. I'm creating perfect right angles with the arm. Okay, we've got rid of a mullety fill in the back. We've got a lovely amount of texture through here. And let's show you what goes on with the sides. So obviously we're conscious about how much hair we've got in the front, on the side. How are we doing for time, Mike?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Great. Forward diagonal, front of the head. So it just changes slightly. Overextending that hair back to our previous sections, purely because it's a safeguard. So I'm not going to be taking great big chunks out of the front. She hasn't got it there to warrant being taken out. So this is where we are advocating over direction. Still being mindful of that section we had on the top, where our previous short layers were. Come all the way back. Do the same on the other side. I'm going to give you a front view now, here, through here. See what the difference is. Forward diagonal, overextending to the back. So because I'm right-handed, it looks like differently in your camera, in your mirror. I've got to make sure my body position just slightly changes. Okay, so I've got to come right the way over the top. I'm using the very tip point of the razor. And once again, this hand position, remember to elevate up. Very little hair there to come off the front, purely from quantity-wise. And all I've got to do is just cut the front part of her hair, pull her up. There we go. So I'm going to give you a couple of options of how you would blend a fringe into that front. As you can see through here, nasty little kiss curl on this mannequin. So the beauty of a razor, I'm going to take the section all it is to the back of the ear. That's all I want to work on. I don't want to be doing it going further back than that. Just the back of the ear. Just like we did on that bob earlier on. So I've now got a reference point. So I'm not pulling the hair out. The hair doesn't live out here in the real world. You know, it's going to be on natural fall. My reference point is that shortest piece I cut earlier on the top. That was my guide. And I full well that is virtually just down to her chin. So it really isn't that long. So that gives me creating a really sort of like sweeping fringe anyway, which is quite on point. Working the size section we can, so my tensions, once again, is very deliberate and constant. I literally find that section we had before, and I just drop the razor straight down. And what that stops me doing is cutting the corner off of the front of the head. I've now got quite an acute angle working through here that leaves the weight in the front. So it's got a much more of what I call like that one lengthy vibe to it, but because I haven't pulled out, you know, overextended it all the way out, it doesn't soften the hair. By pulling all the hair out and trying to cut it, it softens the front even more because you're removing more weight. So this drop just leaves, especially relevant on fine hair, just leaves a nice weighty look in the front. Slight difference on the other side for you as an option. For argument's sake, we've got more hair in the front through here, which we should have. Once again, section behind the ear, pull all that out of the way. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to carve this back a little bit further and then drop. Okay, let me do that one a little bit slower for you just to see it, just to explain to what that does. Okay, so I've got my guide from this side, from the front. I'm going to run it back. You can see me slide back and then I pull it forward. Okay, do that one once again. I'm elevating because I'm going up, traveling up the head. So I come across and then I'll take it back. And what that does, it creates like a little S bend in the hair, a little S section. Leaves all your weight in the front, but carves away more hair through here. And as you can see then, it just carves it away and then kicks around the cheekbone onto the jaw. Very, very flattering. I really like doing that. So that's where the beauty of the razor is. Try doing that with a pair of scissors, carving motion. There we've got very, very quick modern shag, and we've done no texturizing in this. That's a really important thing to remember. Hair types, etc. Because it's a razor, it does not have to be textured. It just will do its natural texture with what we're doing and the tool we're using. So I would have to do very, very little internal cutting onto this if the hair quality, thickness didn't need it. You can still do a really cool textured haircut. So we've got that carved section this side and much more of a one length drop on that side. So that is our razor cutting class for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't think we had any questions in there, Mike? No? Thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to come back and do another one. As I say, first one for you guys. So hopefully I'll see you again soon. And remember, please follow us on our social media. There's going to be lots more updates on there, on our Unite TV, on Instagram and our own website as well. So thanks very much and hope to see you again soon.